Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. We continue with the Dukka Sacca of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra again today. We start from page number 6. Right? We came on to, in the Dukka, in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, the Four Noble Truths, the practicing, the Dukka Sacca and Dukka Vedana. Dukka Vedana is experienced by a person, and the Vedana is only a Chaitasika Dhamma which enables that sort of experience to be presented as a Vedana. So when we are looking at the Vedana of a particular experience, of that experience, Vedana is one component. But because Vedana, just when it comes to the Vijnana Khanda, the mind has to always arise with two counterparts. What are those two counterparts? Actually, three, right? Three counterparts. What are those three counterparts? Vedana Khanda, Sanya Khanda, Sankhara Khanda. The mind, so it should also be a little bit interesting why in the five aggregates of clinging, whilst Vedana Chaitasika and Sanya Chaitasika are, as the name says, Chaitasikas, they are taken out of the Sankhara Khanda, the compilation of the Chaitasika Dhammas, the 50 Chaitasika Dhammas. They are taken out and presented as two individual khandas. They are taken out and presented as two individual khandas forming the five khandas. If not for Vedana and Sanya Khanda, what would we have? We would have Rupa Khanda, we would have Sankhara Khanda, we would have Vijnana Khanda. Right? But no, we have Sanya and Vedana as well. Because in the arising of the object, whatever this object might be, whether it be a Panchadvara object or a Manodvarika object, but Panchadvarika and Manodvarika within the present moment, when an object is experienced, this experience of the object is, this experiencing of object is done by the mind and the body. The mind is where the lobha arises. So the mind, when it takes an object, two particular factors become very important in the forming of khanda as a whole. What is that? Identification. The identification is done through the memories that we have of this particular object, or how we may think of this object. That is sanya. The sanya takes a sign of this object to recollect, to jog your memory, to connect it with something that is now familiar or unfamiliar. familiar or unfamiliar. Depending on whether it is familiar or unfamiliar, or in another word, known or unknown, right? Depending on this factor, so many conditions will arise afterwards. One of those conditions is the Vedana. For example, if a person tastes something that is quite hot, if the person has already tasted the dish, and if the person has not tasted this dish before, the experience of the dish, although it is the same amount of spice that is being tasted by both parties, it would be different. The Vedana that is experienced by the person is now different. Why? Ara sanyava තියෙනවා. Right. In this way, now let us say we know our minds. It doesn't have a logical sort of data sheet that it follows when it comes to cognition. It really depends on so many factors, including whether there was the right amount of sugar or there was no sugar in the tea in the morning, isn't it? All of those things in our day, those little things that add up, all of those we know become conditions, right? We might not think about it, but they eventually or ultimately they do, right? They do. Depending on what those conditions are, the perceival of this would then ඒ කියන්නේ සංඥා කන්දය යෙදෙන විදිය වෙනස් වෙනවා. Depending on the conditions that are, the perceival of the object changes. So if you're having a brilliant day, so brilliant, and nothing can bring you down because everything seems so how do you say, irrelevant in comparison to this what you're going through. And then when you're having a not so good day, or maybe neither, upeka as well, right? You're not thinking what either. Those conditions, that sanya, what does that then say? It says that depending on these conditions, the sanya can change. Then we come or bring ourselves into a condition where nothing changes. And that is what we do with the Dhamma. Think about this, for example. Let us say there is something so important as a goal to you. There is something so important as a goal to you, right? In other words, if we start in this way, let us say as a mother or as a father, you will probably, most probably, you will try your very best to be at your children's, let us say, graduation or something, a great accomplishment that they have, right? Especially when they're smaller, because, you have to be there, right? Something like that. Now, if a friend says, okay, come for a drink, or let's meet up, or let's go there, let's go here, let's go on vacation, you're going to say, no, I have my child's graduation to attend. All right. I have my child's graduation to attend. The sanya that we are looking at in terms of Dhamma is not very different. It can't be different because sanya is universal. In the Dhamma, in that case, the goal of the Dhamma, what you're trying to reach in the Dhamma, has to become an objective goal. Not just a goal, an objective goal. What does it mean? What is the difference between a goal and an objective goal? An objective goal is what is a clear demarcation of what your exact objective is. From the mind, you visualize it, or physically, you have created it. This is how it should be. And where or who forms that view? Dhamma. When the mind lets go through the practice, comes to then let go of the hindrances, then the person comes to the goal, the nirvana as goal, enlightenment as goal, or whatever goal in spirituality that you have. That goal, you realize, becomes more important than anything else. Right? More important than anything else. But thank goodness that this goal is not related to anything that is material. This goal is not related to anything that is material. What this goal is everything to do with surpassing or the supramundane. The supramundane. The visualizations that we create are based upon the stories that we've learned, the Dhamma that we know. And when we start meditating, our meditational experiences with breathe fresh air into the dry practice, or I'm sorry, dry Dhamma. Dry Dhamma. Dry Dhamma is a term that we often use in the monasteries to say theoretical Dhamma without the practice element. We call that dry. Right? Right? Where there is only that sense of that theory. The theory is all right, and we will, of course, we might be very logical in mind, and you can very much see well into the future, and it all makes sense. That's lovely. However, the Bhavanamaya experience, the meditational experience of Dhamma is what breathes that life into the practice. It is in that active practice, when you are in it, whatever that comes within your periphery, your six senses, මෙතන සංඥාව යෙදෙන්නේ උතකොට හැම වෙලේම අර ධර්මයේ යටතේ. ඒත් මෙතන ධර්මයේ උතකොට the person has to have that connection with the Dhamma. උතකොට මොනවා වුණත්, whatever that happens, we bring ourselves into a moment, especially when you see these lapses again and again, again and again, again and again. Those lapses are not things that we discourage ourselves by, but those are signs of our hindrances. Signs of the hindrances. A with it, objectively. These are signs of the hindrances. ඔතකොට මේ කරපු වැරද්ද අයියෝ මොකද්ද මම මේ කරේ මං දැන් කොහොමද කියලා අද භාවනා කරන්නේ කියලා ඒ සිතුවිල්ලම වැරදි. ඒ සිතුවිල්ලම වැරදි. මොකද අපි විදර්ශනා පැත්තෙන් ගත්තොත් මොකද that thought itself puts back the identity. You're saying that you are this person, but the practice is in realizing non-self, anapabhavya. Right? Non-self. So these moments, for example, when you have those encumbrances where you think this cannot be done or this is difficult, a difficulty කියන එකේ වේදනාවක් තියෙනවනේ වේදනාවක් තියෙන්න ඕන. මොකද මනස when the consciousness arises, the consciousness has to always arise with වේදනා and සංඥා. There is no mental experience that is devoid of vedana. That is devoid of Vedana. When the javanas run, there will always be a Vedana. This Vedana is something that is deemed, the level is deemed by the mind. In studying this depth of Dhamma, we come to realize that when the Dukka Sacca, the realization or the knowledge of the Dukka Sacca, when that is greater, what happens, everyone? Dukkha feeling becomes far more smaller. Far more smaller. When you speak about the Arahants, who, just imagine if we take ourselves to the story of the Arahants who was meditating in the forest, and he had been in such long time of meditation that the vines had cracked themselves upon this monk. Now the monk, waking up from the meditation, realizing that there's a forest fire, right? But not going through. Now, mind you, we can cut trees, break nature, right? If I might say it like that, if we can cause harm to nature, meaning inanimate objects, plants, greenery, that sort of thing. If it comes to harm another person's life. We cannot destroy nature to save our own life. That's the rule, right? So, for example, let us say if I am to see another monk, so if let us say in danger and this sort of wine scenario, I am by the Vinaya allowed to save, right? To save. But I can't save for myself as well, which actually, when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense also, because just imagine, because just imagine, if you take, if your question, right, later on, let us say something of this sort has happened, an unfortunate incident that has caused harm to life has happened, and the surviving monk is questioned because he's the only one who was there. He would be asked, why didn't you save him? Right? He would ask, why didn't you save him? And of course, if he says because of my practice, right? That seems quite that doesn't seem very practice oriented, right there. But uh, but if you think about the other side, there could also have been legal issues that could arise with those sorts of scenarios as well. But when it comes to one's own life, one cannot bring harm to nature. එතකොට හිතන්න කොහොමද හාමුදුරු කෙනෙක්, how does a monk who is not enlightened as yet, but of course is in the Dhamma, is a practitioner, active practitioner, how does he survive that pain that you undergo to that amount that is realizing that the Dukka Sacca and Dukka Vedana are two different things. The Dukkha Vedana is far more inferior in comparison to the truth of Dukkha, everyone. Right? So when the Buddha says Dukkha, Dukkha in that extent, when the Buddha is referring to Dukkha, the Buddha is not. Most cases, the Buddha is referring to this Dukkha here, not this Dukkha Vedana. But this Dukkha Vedana, as we know, is a part and parcel of Dukkha Sacca. But the bhavana yogi, this comfort, this discomfort that is felt physically, mentally, all comes down to realizing that this is in nature impermanent. That if there is a person, there is nothing that is like nor dislike. If there is no person, right? If there is no person, dukkha sacca, dukkha sacca, dukkha, truth, commonly called the truth of suffering, does not merely refer to actual painful feeling. Likewise, dukkha, but teaches that on account of the law of impermanency and change, all the phenomena of existence, even at the states of highest bliss and happiness, are unsatisfactory. Are unsatisfactory. එතකොට, now, when we think of, I think this word dukkha is so ingrained into our heads because it is so close to our own language that our minds always go to the colloquial use of the word dukkha. However, when we look at the real reason of dukkha is the fact that we are constantly not happy with the situation. We are constantly in a position of what's the word? Unsatisfactoriness. Unsatisfactoriness. So even when it comes to the Dhamma, the may velavuna, then yeah, of course, if you were put on the spotlight, you might retaliate and you might say, not really, I am enjoying, I'm kicking back, I'm all of these things, but look inside. It is not the fact, this does not mean that you are impoverished. It does not mean that you have a lot of burdens. It does not mean any of that. This unsatisfactoriness is something that hinders each and every being, each and every moment. Why that unsatisfactoriness arises, just imagine moment to moment, අද කට්ටිය බත් කෑවද? අද බත් කෑවේ. බත් කෑවේ නෑ. දැන් ඇමරිකාවේ කට්ටිය බත් කනවා හැමදාම වෙන්නේ නැති අපි නම් හැමදාම බත් කන්නේ නැහැ. නේද UK වල? Depends. Now දැන් බත් කන්නට දැන්
පිටෑවෙත් නෑ පන්ති.
මේ එනම් බත් කන දවසට නැත්තම් ඒක බත් කන දවසට නැත්තම් ඕනෑම දෙයක් කන අවස්ථාවේදී හොඳට අනලා හරි හොඳට අනලා දැන් බත් අන්නනොත් ඉතින් අර විවිධාකාර අර කරීස් ඔක්කොම දාලා අනලා බත් ගුලියක් හදලා බත් ගුලිය උතකොට දැන් බත් ගුලිය ඒ කන අවස්ථාවේ the Buddha when he stresses on the importance of focusing on food when you're eating brings to light the possibilities for that insight to also occur at that moment. ඒ බත්ගුලිය අනනොට දැන් බලන්න අර එක එක වෑංජන් වලට යද්දී moment to moment how that තණ්හා අර දකිනා මේක ඔක්කොම තණ්හානේ. දැන් ඒක අනනවා. හොඳට අනනවා. හොඳටත් අනන්නේ තණ්හාවට. right? හොඳටත් අනන්නේ තණ්හාවට. එතකොට හොඳටත් අනලා හරි දැන් මේක හොඳට බක්ලියක් මේව කරලා අනලා දැන් මේ වෙලාවේ කටට කෙල උඩලු. At this point, you're already salivating if the food smells good and it's warm and it's steaming and all of these things. Your mouth is salivating. From the moment that you got the plate of food, or maybe you finished cooking, right? Or you got the plate in front of you, the sitting was unsatisfactory. The being was unsatisfactory. Doing anything else was unsatisfactory. Eating was the only thing that seemed satisfactory. Hence, you started eating. As you started eating, you put the morsel of food into your mouth, the salivation is already there. Eteka, you put the morsel of food into your mouth and you start biting. You start chewing your food. Tika, you realize the more that you chew, the more that you swallow, you're losing it. You're losing the taste. You're losing the taste. So now, as you lose the taste, you get ready for the next one. ඔය විදියට දැන් අත ඉඳුල් වෙලා. අත ඉඳුල් වෙලා කියනට අත ඉඳුල් කරාගෙන ඉන්න බෑ. දැන් අත ඉඳුල් වෙලා හින්දා because the hand is soiled, you have to go wash. දැන් හෝදනට හෝදන දැන් සබන් ගාලා හොඳට හෝදනවා. උතර කොච්චර හේදුවක් මදි. තව හෝදන්න ඕන. තව සබන්, තව warm water. දැන් බලන්න. Unsatisfactoriness. Hodala not after you finish washing your hand, now you're looking for the towel. Now you're unsatisfied with the wet hands. Right? Now you're looking for the towel. Right? Now the towel is wet. Now that is also a little bit unsatisfactory. Lassa today dalagi towel now it's wet. Now you have to again put it to dry. Yes. Put it to now one might say this is life. Yes, this is life. But that is the Kama Vachara Sammuti life. Yes. And when you open your eyes to the reality of what is going on inside and you question yourself, why am I seeking? Why are we seeking? Why are we seeking happiness? Why are we seeking spiritual bliss? Right? All of it, you realize moment to moment throughout your day, what we are, the state that we are in, is a state of unsatisfactoriness. Now, as you wash your hands and now you come back to your couch or wherever you were seated, now you sit down for a moment, you look around the kitchen and you see this kitchen is also clean, so there's nothing to do. Right? Now you think of what should I do now? TV එක දානවද? ෆෝන් එක WhatsApp messages ටිකක් බලනවද? ගිහිල්ලා වෙන මොනවාරි වැඩක් කරනවද? කොහෙද යමුද? shopping කරමුද? මොනවද රැට කන්න තියෙන්නේ? Now see. Thoughts, right? Those thoughts come out of the fact that deep within there is, this is not you, everyone. This is not you. This is nature. This is nature. Why is this nature present? Because the mind arises and ceases. Because rupas, materiality arises and ceases. Right? There is no being in this world at this moment on this earth, in all of the 30 odd planes of existence, other than the enlightened beings. There are no beings who are not arahants, nati kattiya, all the, including anagamis, feel this unsatisfactoriness. Because it is only at the point of absolute parinirvana, upon death, that everything ceases. However, may this dukkha truth to be seen, to come into a position where you can see that. That is the truth you have to connect with, everyone. That is the truth that you have to realize. The truth that all of these things at this moment deep within me, you might be living in the lap of luxury with a lot of resources at your dispense. However, you will not be free from dukkha satya. Because dukkha satya is not Buddhist. It is not the Buddhas. It is not, it is the nature of this samsara. It is the nature of this samsara. And in that nature, if one does not realize that dukkha vedana is not dukkha satya, but only a part of it, if he does not realize, you think that this dukkha vedana is always taken through that sanya, through that sanya connecting to the light. Atma sanyaවත් එනවනේ දුකක් විඳිනකොට. ඇයි මට මේක වෙන්නේ කියලා. ආත්ම සංඥාවක් එනවනේ. Right? Why do I have to see these things? Why do I have to hear these things? Why do I have to go through these things? ඒ ආත්ම සංඥාවල් ඔක්කොම ඉන්නේ ආපහු මේ දුක්ඛ වේදනාව දිහා බලනවා ආත්ම සංඥාවෙන්. අයෝන්සු මනසිකාර. Wrong attention. Right? Wrong attention. And bear in themselves the seed of suffering and misery. And bear in themselves the seed of suffering and misery. The three characteristics of existence, Tilakkana. The three characteristics of existence, Trilakkana. Or the universal characteristics, Samanya Lakkana, Anicca Dukkha Anatta. Now, we've seen this, we've heard these gathas from the Dhammapada. Sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya passati atanim bindate dukkhe esamagho visuddhya. All conditioned things are impermanent, suffering, and non-self. Me ekakvat, this is nothing to do with you. Seeing this with wisdom, one becomes disgusted with suffering. Seeing this wisdom, atanim bindate dukkhe, me dukkha vedana dukkha neme, me dukkha satcha dukkha. Atani bindate dukkhe esamaggo visuddhya. This is the path to purity. When it comes to issues that you have to deal with within your family, for example, which are sometimes quite hard and can get quite hard, right? Or if it is coming to a situation where you have to deal with something quite unpleasant, right? At those times, remember, oya unpleasantness ekama tamai dukkha satya. Because I have to deal with this unpleasantness, I can't be practicing right now. No. That dukkha itself, let us say your child is saying this and that, or this and that, or your family is saying what not, or your friends are saying what not. When you're going through those very difficult and heart-wrenching experiences, danaganna, you're going through those because me sankata loke inna hinda. Me sankata loke inna hinda. Right? That is dukkha satya. That is dukkha satya. Esamaggo visuddhya. This is the path to purity. Realizing, seeing condition phenomena as they are. The suffering that are inherently within them, suffering that are inherently within them, I like the way the seeds of suffering and misery. The seeds of suffering and misery. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි යම්කිසි විදියකට දැන් අපි හිතුවත් මට හොඳකට මතක තියාගන්න පුළුවන්. Right? That will also come to cease. Hence suffering. Otogota, now when you, this happens to a lot of people when they were younger, happens to a lot of Sri Lankans actually, and possibly maybe Indians and anyone who is into those countries. When, we have in our cultures this thing about luck, right? Luck. Podi kattiya, chuti lamai name, right? Sometimes the mothers, the fathers, they say, the relatives, they say, oh, you're very lucky, all of these things. And they grow up. And maybe this is true. Maybe they are auspicious. In reality, they are auspicious. They receive generosity from people. They're kind to people. People love them. All of these things might be very true. හරි ඊට පස්සේ දැන් ටිකක් දැන් පොඩි කාලේ ඊට පස්සේ දැන් ලොකු වුණාට පස්සේ අපි කියපු මේ කර්ම ශක්තිය ඉවර වෙනවා. දැන් මේ ජීවිතයේම ඒවයි කර්ම ශක්තිය ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉවර වෙනවා. තරුණ කාලේ මේක ඉවරයි. ඊට පස්සේ දුක ගහන්න පටන් ගන්නවා උඩට. හරි. ඔතකොට දැන් මේ අවස්ථාවේ now when they seem that they are not that lucky anymore දැන් බලන්න මේ මිනිස්සු they go into this position where they think that life's over for them. Life's over. Why? My luck has run out. So mentally, now our luck කියන ඒ සංඥාවට මං lucky කියන මේ සංඥාවට ඇලිච්ච මිනිස්සයා දැන් මේ සංඥාවට ඒ environment එක නැතිකොට now the person is living in a sense of misery. And these thoughts can be so bad because entire families can be affected by this thought. Entire families. Right. Now, for example, there was this Kapumatya who was actually caught. He was, I think, something happened to him from the legal side. I think very, very smart Kapumatya. Harry. Smart Kapumatya. Smart Kapumatya කියන්නේ දැන් මේ Kapumatya මේ ඔය වැඩ honeymoonian අරවා මෙව්වා ඔක්කොම and when you're living in these villages you also know people and the Kapumate is often at the temple so you often know all these people isn't it right ඔතන මේ Kapumate දැන් ඔය පිටරට ඉන්න කට්ටිය ඉන්නවනේ දැන් ඔය පවුල් නේම හදාගෙන not they've grown up in these temples I guess right eating temples and kovils in these places and ඉතින් කපුමාත්‍ය බලනවා he has apparently done this where he's kept an eye out for families whose relatives are abroad. This is horrible, right? This is horrible. Families with relatives overseas. ඔතකොට දැන් ඕමෝම ඉඳලා ඊට පස්සේ he finds දන්නවනේ ඉතින් අපේ මේ තැන්වලට ගියාම නේද විස්තර අහන විදිහ ඕමෝම අහගෙන he will also know these families he will call them and have contact and ඉඳලා දානවා මේ කියන්න එපා ඒත් මේ අක්කා ඇවිල්ලා මේක කරා අම්මා ඇවිල්ලා මේක කරා කියලා දැන් මේ ලෝකේ වටේ මේ මිනිස්සු right? To families all across, right? And he has convinced them that the sister-in-law, the brother-in-law, the mother-in-law, these characters are coming and doing stuff to them in the Devali. ඒගොල්ලෝ අහනවා මොකද දැන් මං කරන්න ඕන? Obviously. ඒකට පූජාවක් තියෙනවා කියලා අර ලයිසු ටික මේ මේව කරනවා. And this has been his business. But as casualties of this, I personally know a number of families who became casualties of this and the families are entirely broken apart. Putha අම්මත් එක්ක තරහ වෙලා. හරි පුතා අම්මා ඒ කියන්නේ the son is mad at the mother thinking that the mother
Foolishness.
Family is going and doing stuff to disrupt his marriage. Now see, එතන මේ ඔක්කොම අපි මෙව ඔක්කොම කරන්නේ. Again මේ සියල්ලම දුක්ඛ සත්‍ය. මෙන්න මේ ඔතුරේ දුක්ඛ සත්‍යයේ තව වැරදි තැන් වලට අදින්නේ කවුද? අර තණ්හාව. දුක්ඛ සත්‍යයේ හටගන්නවා දුක්ඛ සත්‍යයේ තියෙනවා දුක්ඛ සත්‍යයේ හටගන්න විවිධාකාර the different elements that arise. We take these things through the atma, through tanha, samudaya satya. The best position I think we know with experience is, well, we are able to make එක කනකින් අහලා අනිත් කනින් එළියට දාන්න, even when it comes to good stuff about you. Even when it comes to good things, not taking notice, but එක කනින් අහලා අනිත් කනින් එළියට දාලා අමතක කරන්න පුළුවන් තරමට සංඛාර අඩුයි. සංඛාර අඩුයි. Now, let's take a closer look at the phrase sabbe sankhara dukkha. All sankharas are dukkha, but what are sankharas here? The Pali word sankhara is explained as follows. It's explained as follows. Some, the root sang, together, jointly, harmoniously together. Sang, karoti, to make, sankha, to make, form, shape, condition. Sankharoti, to compose, to shape, to condition. Sankhara, the compose, the shape, the condition. Right? The second, the condition, the phenomena which shapes, forms. Now, sankhara කියලා ගත්තම ඔතකොට whatever formation that is there is a sankhara. මේ සංඛාරය රූප සංඛාරයක් වෙන්න, this can be a material සංඛාර. මේ සංඛාරය මනෝ සංඛාරයක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, can be a mental සංඛාරය as well. Depending on the context, sankhara has different meanings. First one, mental formations when speaking of the 5 aggregates. So, under the 5 aggregates, sankhara khanda means the mental formation, චෛතසික ධම්ම. So, the sankhara khanda. Kamma formations. In the doctrine of dependent origination, Parijjasamuppada, avijja pacchaya sankhara and sankhara pacchaya vijnana. In this context, sankhara refers to karmic formations, also called karmic forces. Eka පැහැදිලි නේද? Right? This is not news to us, is it? We knew that sankhara are karmic formations there. Right? How did we know? Because when we went over the Parijjasamuppada in so many cases, we went over the fact that these are causes of the past. Causes of the past means those are sankhara dharma, karmic formations. Alright? Now, formations of the past. Sankhara means karmic formations, also called karmic forces or volitional activities, which lead to becoming and rebirth. Here, sankhara should be understood. As identical with kamma or chetana, intention, volition, motivation, sankhara. Sankhara. Any questions there? Anyone? Any questions there? No questions there, isn't it? Avijja pacchaya sankhara. Okay. Anyone? I feel like I'm getting the vibrations. My spider senses are tingling. There's someone here who wants to ask a question, I feel. Kauda, who is that person? Speak.
One thing I want to ask about this Sankara, and you said Sankara is karmic formation, and it could be Punyabhi Sankara, Punyabhi Sankara, or Anandibha Sankara. But there's another meaning this. Now, when you say Sielu Sanskara Dharmayang Anityai,
Oh.
So that means Sanskara has got 2 meanings.
Sankhara has got 7 meanings and more.
Okay.
Right? Sankharas, depending on where the word sankhara is used. There are particular places where sankhara, the word sankhara, but when we are referring to, for example, the Parijjasampada sankhara, the punyabi, apunyabi, anenjabi sankhara, the punyabi, apunyabi, anenjabi sankhara, we know are karmic formations, which means that those sankharas arise because of past ignorance. Past ignorance. Now, past ignorance. But sankharas can also be the general aggregate, right? When it comes to the mind. However, rupa sankhara, nama sankhara, rupa formations, nama formations. Now, formations, when you are referring to, let us say, Patavi, right? Patavi, when Patavi is with the four Mahabhuta, that's a sankhara. Mahabhuta sankhara. That's a formation. හරි ඒත් මේ සංඛාර කියන මේ වචනය බොහෝ වෙලාවට අපි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ මේ මනසට මනෝ සංඛාරයන් හරිද මාලා මනෝ සංඛාරයන් හරි පුඤ්ඤාභි අපුඤ්ඤාභි ආනෙන්ජාභි කිව්වාම when we say පුඤ්ඤාභි අපුඤ්ඤාභි ආනෙන්ජාභි ඔය පුඤ්ඤාභි දැන් හිතන්න ඔය දැන් අපි කියමු මේ when you go to a temple, let us say when you go to a monastery, right? කියමු රුවන්වැලි සෑයට කියලා දැන් රුවන්වැලි සෑයට කලින් ගියපු අවස්ථාවල් වල රුවන්වැලි සෑයට යනවා හොඳට රුවන්වැලි සෑය පිළිබඳව බණක්කුත් අහලා හරි with great detail about its history and what's not you go to the රුවන්වැලි සෑය දැන් මේ condition එක that condition or when you're walking into Ruwan the way that you do what you do at Ruwan and do your Vandana Puja, those thoughts that come up, everyone, those thoughts that come up. Hari. Mal Puja karna vilavata, Satman karna when you're doing your walking meditation, when you're meditating, when you're offering the flowers, when you're lighting the lamps, when you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. Those thoughts that arise are avidya pachya sankhara.
Sankhara.
Those sankharas, remember, those sankharas, those thoughts that arise, I am referring to those initial, that mind that arises at the time that you're there. ඔතකොට මෙන්න මෙතන හටගන්නේ මනස, the mind that arises right now when you're dealing with this one-on-one, that is avidya pachya sankhara. ඒ කියන්නේ what it means is regardless of whether the deed is great or not, it is avidya. This does not mean, everyone, that you should not do it. What this means, then the question comes, how different is it from the akusala avidya? It is way different from the akusala avidya. ඔතකොට this avidya, right? Akusala avidya කියලා දෙයක් නෑ. අවිද්‍යාව ඔක්කොම අකුසලයි. This avidya is not seeing, delusion. Right? Delusion. පින්කම් කරන්නේත් යම් කිසි විදියකට ඒ කියන්නේ අපි නිවන අරමුණු කරන්නේ නැතුව අපි කියමු we are wishing for our personal prosperity and all of that, which might be fair, which is fair, but it is avidya. ඒක බොරු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් බෝසතාණන් වහන්සේ, when you also look at, let us say, the bodhisattvas also, let us say, during the time of parami. During the time of parami, I must make it clear, this might, if you misunderstand what I'm saying, you might think that I am dragging the Buddha down. I'm not. Right? If you misunderstand, so I'm going to put that out there right now before proceeding forward. What I'm saying is the akusala and the kusala are both kamaloka, rupaloka, arupaloka. We perform these kusalas hoping, or as the bodhisattva wishing that this would aid towards the attainment of enlightenment, right? Through the fulfillment of the paramis. Enlightenment in this case, Buddhahood. That too, regardless, yes, the Buddha arose, he taught the path and all of that. ඒත් ඒ වෙලාවේ බෝසතාණන් වහන්සේටත් ඒකත් බෝසතාණන් වහන්සේ මේ ඒ සංඛාර ඇතිවුණට එතන එන්නේ පුණ්‍යාභි අපුණ්‍යාභි ආනෙන්ජ. බෝසතාණන් වහන්සේගේ මනස තුලත් එන්නේ පුණ්‍යාභි අපුණ්‍යාභි ආනෙන්ජාපි. එව්වා අවිජ්ජා පත්‍ය සංඛාර. ඒ අවිද්‍යාවේ තුල ඉන්න සත්වයාට විතරයි ඒ වගේ දේවල් කරන්න පුළුවන්. අවිද්‍යාවෙන් ගැලුණාට පස්සේ there is no inclination whatsoever මේ මෙතන ඉන්න. මේක නිකන් there is a there's a restaurant that you love going to. The restaurant, the food was amazing. The food was amazing. Right?
යූරින් නැතුවත් ඇති.
And the food was amazing and all of that. You had a wonderful experience and all of that. But then you come back and you check the ratings of the restaurant, the health ratings, the cleanliness rate. And maybe let us say, this is just a example. Now the restaurant is down there. Right? Now you don't want to go back at all. Right? And you are even disgusted and thinking of throwing up the food that you've already ingested. Do you understand?
Yes.
Right? ඒ කියන්නේ ඔතකොට අර දුක්ඛ සත්‍ය ඔතකොට මෙතන මේ මගේ ජීවිතේ කර්මක්කාරයි මගේ ජීවිතේ මේ මගේ ජීවිතේ එව් වගේ අදහස් නැහැ දැන්. That's depression, that's sadness, that is a place that you shouldn't be in. That is ayonsumansikara, everyone. Dhamma is not depression, right? Far from it. Dhamma is wisdom. And when you look through the wisdom, you realize මේතන කුණු ගොඩක් මෙතන දාගන්න කෙනෙක්කුත් නැහැ. මෙතන වෙන්නේ මේ ප්‍රත්‍යානුකූලව මෙතන වෙන්නේ මෙතන හැමතැනම තියෙන මේ දුක්ඛ සත්‍ය. මෙතන හැමතැනම තියෙන කුසලයත් අකුසලයත් දෙකම දුක්ඛ සත්‍ය. කුසලයට ඇලීමත් අකුසලයට ඇලීමත් දුකට හේතු වෙනවා. මොකද කුසලයේද අකුසලයේද අනිත්‍යයි. කුසලයේද අකුසලයේද අනිත්‍යයි. ඒ හින්දා ඒක දුකට හේතු වෙනවාමයි. ඒ දුකට හේතු වෙනවා කියන එක මේක දුක්ඛ සත්‍යයි. දුකට හේතු වෙනවා කියන එකයි දුක්ඛ සත්‍යයි කියන එකත්. මෙන්න මෙතන the intrinsic nature of it itself is unsatisfactory. ඒ කියන්නේ ලෝභ මූල සිතක් හටගත්තම මේ ලෝභ මූල සිත අරමුණ අරගෙන ලෝභ මූලයෙන් දැන් අරමුණට ජවන අවස්ථාවේ මේ අරමුණ ගන්නවා. ඒත් ඉන්නේ ඒක හතක් ගිහිල්ලා ඉවර වෙනවා. ගත්ත මදි. ඔතන ආපහු දැන් බලන්න. Now when only 17 mind movements out of which 7 javanas associate the object. Now when the object is not yet fully understood මොනවද වෙන්නේ? දෙවෙනි වීතියක් දුවනවා ඒ අරමුණම ගන්න. තාමත් මදි. තුන්වෙනි වීතියක් යනවා අරමුණ ගන්න. ඒ අරමුණ ආපහු අර ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් එක එන්නේ කොහොමද? ඕක තමයි කාම රාගය. කාම තණ්හාව. Then I've seen an object, I want to see more. What is this object? මොන පාටද? මොන හැඩරුවද? උසයිද? පොඩිද? ලොකුයිද? මොනවද මේ? Right? Then that interest is kama raga. Kama raga. The tanha for that. So, ඕක නවත්තන්න බෑනේ. ඕක නවත්තන්න කියලා කිව්වොත්, I mean, it is impossible. Impossible for a layman to stop that. How is it possible? Right? And there are so many medical practitioners here as well. And you might be thinking, my gosh, අතරම මේක වැරදි පැත්තෙන් ගත්තොත් ඉවරයි නේද කියන එක. Right? Really, if you take this the wrong way, you're done. Right? There's a Sri Lankan gent living at this house, and surprisingly, the people who lived in this house before was also a Buddhist family. And the family before that was also a Buddhist family somehow, right? So this Buddhist family that had lived at that house before, the whole family was Buddhist. Right, whole family was Buddhist, a white family, local Colchestrians, and the son went into, he was so interested in Buddhism, was practicing, was reading, so interested karma and all of these things, and this element of suffering for him, he didn't know how to understand what that suffering was. Right, he took the whole thing as dukkha, started going into a depression, hung himself, suicided. Right. So, like this is only one story. There are many like this. There are so many monks like this as well, nuns, practitioners. Right. මෙන්න මේක මේ හින්දා තමයි බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ කියන්නේ අනිත් මිනිසුන්ට hina වෙන්න එපා. අනිත් මිනිසුන්ට ගරහන්න එපා. අනිත් මිනිසුන්ගේ ඔය මානසික ඔය ජීවිතවල වල තියෙන කරදවල් උඩ සතුටු වෙන්න එපා. අනිත් මිනිසුන්ගේ ජීවිතවල වලට කරදර ඇති කරන්න එපා. Right? Do good, help others. If you can give something good to a person, give it. When the Buddha says all of this, everyone, of course, some might, in coming into Dhamma, might not understand what this all means. This is karma. Meva karma. When you put in new fuel into the system, right? New fuel, you get your engine clean, you put that little sort of chemical that flushes all the pipes of the sediments and all of that, and then your car, you put the new oil in, the car runs smoothly. For your life to run smoothly, you have to have the support of good karmas. And especially in living in scenario, then පින්කමක් කරන්න ගියත් හරි අමාරුයිනේ පින්කම් කරන්නත් නේද? හරි අමාරුයි පින්කම් කරන්නත්. ඒ කියන්නේ පින්කම් කරන්න අමාරුයි කියලා කියන්නේ මේ පින්කමක් කරන අවස්ථාවේදී මනස රකින්න එක. right? මනස රකින්න එක. අන්තිමට පින්කමක් පටන් ගන්නේ ඉවර කරන්නේ උදව්වක් කරා. right? ඉවර කරන්නේ උදව්වක් කරා වගේ. ඇයි the it became so hopeless in dealing with all the trials and tribulations that came in the organizing of it that you have just put it as a favor or something like that in your car. It is what I'm saying is even to do a pinkhammer, if a person's mind is not right in sense of yonsu mansikara, it would be quite challenging to complete in the same way. How to complete it in the same way. How many people who do not realize this, right? This karmic formations bit with regards to the පටිච්චසමුප්පාද. මෙන්න මෙතන තමන් මේ ලෝකේ දකින දුකක් තියෙනවනේ. මේ ලෝකේ දකින යම්කිසි පිළිකුල් කර යුතු දේවල් ටිකක් තියෙනවනේ. ඒ දේවල් ටික ඔක්කොම තමන්ගේ සලායතන ద్వාරයන් හරහා මේ හටගන්නේ කර්ම විපාක වශයෙන්. ඔතකොට ඒ දෙය දැක්කේ මේ හින්දා නෙමේ ඒ වගේ වේදනාවක් දැනීමට මේ ප්‍රත්‍ය කර්ම වශයෙන් තිබිලා තියෙනවා. ඔතකොට us being in these times අපි ඔක්කොම සංසාර ගමනේදී යම් කිසි විදියකට මෙන්න මේ තැනට වැටලා තියෙන්නේ මේ විදියට අපි කර්ම කරලා තියෙනවා. Some. Right? Some. Now, all of you, 21 of you being in this class today, and often almost every week, right? There is some sort of similarity in your karmic journey that has allowed you or which has brought you here, this occasion, right? This occasion. Likewise, let us say the places that you work, everyone. The places that you work, the places that you go shopping at, the familiar faces that you often say hi to and bye to, are all in එව්ව ඔක්කොම මේ න්‍යායවල අනුව මෙන්න මේ හරි ගස්සලා තියෙන්නේ. සමහර කට්ටියට මේ හරි ගස්සලා තියෙන හරි ගැස්සලා තියෙන මේ න්‍යාය, this is not destiny. මේක හැම වෙලෙම වෙනස් වෙනවා. Now destiny, it says දැන් අපේ Hindu ඒ දර්ශනයේ උඩ නැත්නම් කතෝලික Abrahamic religions, the destiny, it is fixed. This, nothing is fixed. හරි. Nothing is fixed. මේක මොහොතක් පාසා මේක වෙනස් වෙනවා. මේක වෙනස් වෙනවා. හරි. It is like for example මේ ගිහි ළමයෙක් එකපාරටම පැවිදි වෙනවා. ඒ පැවිදි වෙච්ච ගමන්ම ජීවිතේ වෙනස් වෙනවා. හරියට පැවිදි වුණා. ඒ වෙච්ච වෙලාවෙ ඉඳන් ජීවිතේ වෙනස් වෙනවා. Complete change. Why the conditions change? Condition change. ඔතකොට මේක එක දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. This is not, don't think of it like one cylinder. This changes every moment, shifting, 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 shifting. Right? So let us say up until this point, you are able to have a relationship with your child till the end, right? Till the very end. But then something comes over you or the child says something very damaging to the relationship. Now the child is no more. ඕවගේ දේවල් වෙන්න පුළුවන් අපි හිතන්නේ නැති විදියට. In ways that we do not imagine. So don't think that this is මේක කර්මය වුණත් මේක fixed කියලා හිතන්න එපා. Fixed වෙන එක කර්මයක් විතරයි තියෙන්නේ, which we have learned in the Dhammasangani, which is that anantariya papa karma, when you do the heinous crimes, kill mother, matricide, patricide, patricide, killing of an arahant, shedding the blood of a Buddha, causing the shedding of the blood of the blood of the Buddha, and niyata mithya drushtika, to those of you who are not familiar with the term, niyata mithya drushtika is I can't remember, is there an English translation to niyata mithya drushtika? Is one who takes fixed wrong views. He's wrong. This person's wrong views are absolutely fixed. Hence, because wrong views are absolutely fixed, and there is no probability of change happening in those views, they're so fixed. Such a person is also categorized under those heinous crimes. Why? He's doing the biggest crime onto himself, which is even worse than going into the worst of hellish experiences, which is having to sort of deal with this thing forever.
සසරේ යන්න වෙනවා.
හරි. ඔතකොට ඇත්තටම ධම්මකාම ඕකට අට කතාවේ ලස්සන කතා ටිකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ධම්මකාමෝ බවං හෝති ධම්ම දෙස්සී පරාභවෝ. Right? The one who loves the Dhamma comes to sort of grow and develop themselves. And this Dhamma, again, everyone, it is very much universal. Right? The one who loves the truth, the reality, one who has a sense of keenness to that and accepts that reality openly, such person, right? Dhamma. This Dhamma is the truth. All right. Then, although we are learning the Abhidhamma and Sutras on a Buddhist class, this Dhamma relates to everyone around as well. But of course, there are times are going to come. ධම්මකාමෝ බවං හෝති ධම්ම දෙස්සී පරාභව විශේෂම ධර්මයට නිග්‍රහ කරාම it is named in the Attakatha as one of the causes of going into places of mithya drushti, going into or coming into the company and association or surroundings of being a mithya drushtika. Mithya drushtika, meaning falling into or having that company in those places that you live. One of the reasons karmically the Attakatha suggests that it is because of this certain sense of aversion that one creates towards the Dhamma. Aversion one creates towards Dhamma, for which can happen for many reasons, really. Which can happen for many reasons. Moving on, everyone. Do we have any questions? The last one, condition phenomena. Sabbe sankhara anicca. Sabbe sankhara anicca. Siyalu sankhata dharmayan. Condition phenomena are sankhata dharmayan are referred to as sankhara as well. Right? Sabbe sankhara dukkha in the same manner. Right? Now here, සංඛාර උපෙක්ඛා කියනට අර සබ්බේ සංඛාර අනිච්චා කියන විදිහටම තමයි සබ්බේ සංඛාර උපෙක්ඛා ඥානේ තියෙන සංඛාරයක් ගන්න ඕන. In the same way that you would understand sabbe sankhara anicca, all conditioned formations are impermanent, all conditioned formations are suffering, right? In the same way, in the same light, it mentions sankhara upeka. So, upeka towards all conditioned formations. Hari, formation. It is mainly the latter meaning that gives deeper significance. For example, the following sentences of the Buddha that have been handed down in the sutras. Vayadhamma sankhara appamadena sampadeta. Vayadhamma sankhara appamadena sampadeta. Vayadhamma sankhara, this is from the last words of the Buddha before he passed away, mentioned in the Parinirvana Sutta. All conditioned things have the nature of decay and dissolution. Strive diligently with mindfulness. All conditioned things have the nature of decay and dissolution. What does this mean? Sabbhe sankhara within its most intrinsic nature. Sabbhe sankhara, Vayadhamma sankhara, sorry, Vayadhamma sankhara, within the crux, the core of its nature, the sankhara is decaying and dissolution, which we know, everyone. How do we know this? There are how many? Upachaya, santati, anicchata, jarata. Everything arises and ceases. And we imagine that when it comes to the arising and ceasing, this arising and ceasing nature that we see in the Sammuti world, how many ways can something arise? Limitless. I mean, so many ways something could arise. How many ways can things come to pass? In an infinite number of ways things could come to pass, isn't it? Through the many diseases, through accidents, through calamity, through destruction, through war, all of these different ways something can come to pass. Vayadhamma sankhara, the Buddha says, moment to moment, this mind and body, Vayadhamma sankhara, all conditioned things, mind and body, we know this. How? Because the karma, every day the karma, the lifespan that we have is lesser, right? Now, lifespan of, we don't talk about these things, right? But in the open world, but every birthday, the Janaka karma becomes lesser and lesser, weaker, right? Just like an old ship,
Yes.
a new ship sailing across the world, to now
Yes.
ship. But the thing is now, every moment, දැන් අපි හිතනවා දැන් අපිට ලේසි වෙන්න අපි දාගෙන තියෙනවා අවුරුද්දෙන් අපි we count from year to year now, isn't it? We count from year to year, but in reality, moment to moment, you see the buoyancy of the body, isn't it? The body,
Yes.
buoyancy, that point, that energy that we see, it struggles, gets weaker, becomes weaker. And how does that happen? Eventually coming to absolute decay. But moment to moment, moment to moment, this happens. So the moment that you go to sleep and get up, yes, you are rested, but doesn't mean that the other conditions, or rather that decay stopped. No, it doesn't stop. No, it doesn't stop. Anicca vata sankhara Uppadaya vaya dhammino uppajjitva nirujjanti tesang upasamosukho. Impermanent anicca sankhara uppadavaya dhammino, impermanent indeed are the sankharas. Their nature is arising and decay. Born they pass away. They are stilling in true peace. Right? So sometimes in the meditation, when the meditation gets a little bit too difficult to let go of, right? A bit, something anicca sankhara kinekat has worked a lot for me, right? Just imagining the anicca sankhara uppadavaya dhammino uppajjitva nirujjanti tesang upasamosukho. බය වෙන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. ඇඟට ගන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. තේසං උපසමෝසුකෝ. Right? The stilling is the happiness, everyone. So when you're meditating and you're thinking to yourself, or when you're experiencing discomfort, in that discomfort arises because the mind is not still. තාම මනස දුවනවා. The pain or discomfort or that sense of restlessness that arises, when you do realize this, accept them just as Rahul accepted admonition from his father, right? In a way, these sankharas that present themselves to us, because they do present themselves through which I am able to realize the true workings of reality. Because these dukkha sankharas arises through you, you realize the depth of your mind through it. If those dukkha sankharas do not arise, then how on earth are we going to proceed forward in letting go of whole sankharas? Samsara. Because these dukkha sankharas do not arise to certain persons, they are also unable to attain enlightenment. Right? This is in the times where dukkha is far less, when arahants and such beings do not arise. Right? Often during these times, what you have, or the type of enlightened beings that you have during these times are Pacheka Buddhas. Right? But then there are times that even Pacheka Buddhas are not around. Pacheka Buddhas are also not around. Right? In this quotation, and do you realize, everyone? I don't know how many of you, I don't know how many of you are quite informed and, all of that. I know that you have your typical news channels that you watch, or your newspapers that you watch. But I don't know how many of you are fully aware of what's going on in the world.
The world, yes.
Right? And especially around alcohol, around substance abuse, around things that are quite distressing in nature, and how such things.
Earthquakes, Bante.
Hold,
Earthquake,
please.
big earthquake.
Of course, natural disasters and all of that. That is fine. Those are natural disasters, and they happen. However, more than that, what I am grieved about is the situation of, let us say, child protection, is the situations around exploitation, are the stories of how, for example, children go missing from Asia, our countries, and end up being trafficked into the West, to Hollywood, to these places, where they are sold as slaves, to the sex trade. And the more that you go into sort of the world, and you look at this, you realize you can't really, also, whilst there can be a lot of anger, after that anger and insecurity fades away, you come to realize this is dukkha satya. This is otaකොට පිරිහීම කියන දෙය, පිරිහීම does the sort of the fading away of values and all of that, it does not only happen at one place, it happens all over. Right? All over. And I feel quite lucky in myself, to have come across the Dhamma, to not go into such a world of filth, really, filth.
Mm.
There is no better word. It's filth. And being protected or being put into a position where you're given something, shown a carrot in front of you, dangled, and then you go up and you go up and you can't go further up if you don't commit a crime and have it on videotape.
Mm.
You have to commit a crime and have it on videotape to go further up. You know, this is Dukka Satya. I think we are living at a place if you want to seek if you want to seek a certain sense of viraga, that viraga can happen as you look outside. As you look outside, the fact that if this potentially, comes to be us in the receiving end, how horrible that would be. How absolutely, how we wouldn't even wish certain circumstances upon our worst enemies. But this is the world. And this is my world. And my world, whilst there are good stuff, it's also full of filth. But the good things too, the Buddha says, the good you only realize up until the good lasts. When the good starts to fade away, then you realize that was also just a mirage. Just a mirage. Right? So I think I feel happier and happier every single day that I am living in the Dhamma and doing this every single week actually. Because I feel මට මතක් වෙන්නේ the lotus that comes out of the mud, isn't it? As what the Buddha said. And I think to ourselves, if we can also do that, which is being a lotus that comes out of the mud. And that is, in one way or the other, all of us are those lotuses that have come out of that water. But of course, sometimes, we fall back in or,
No, come on, be here.
you can only truly come out. You can only truly come out when you attain Arhat.
Mm.
Hare.
Yep.
Attain Arhat. So you up until then the in different
This.
ways, there will be ways that you will be pulled in. You will be pulled in. Right. And yes. Okay, everyone. Okay, we have some more time. Right. නෑ අපි අදට පන්තිය නවත්තලා අපි
Bante,
next time. Do we have any questions before we close the session today?
can I say something, Bante?
Yes, there we go.
පිතනා අපි හුඟක් වාසනාවන්තයි කියලා ඔබ වහන්සේව හම්බෙච්ච එක.
මේ
ධර්මයේ ඉගෙන ගන්න නිදුක් නිරෝගී වේවා හැමදාටම.
Oh, thank you. I mean, but really, I don't think of it in that manner. Really, I think I don't think that I am just also a benefactor of the Dhamma, really, and I don't think we need to take it into heart like that. I'm the student, I'm the teacher. Now, who knows what will happen?
You're a wonderful teacher, not a teacher.
May
Excellent teacher, Bante.
Bante,
But I have a question to ask, please.
Yes, Sujata.
One question, that is, stealing is true happiness. Stealing.
Yeah, stilling of the mind is not stilling. What is the question, Sujata, again?
Yes. Yeah. What does it mean? I mean, stealing is true happiness. We came across that in your text, Bante.
Stilling of the
Mind.
is when the mind does not go along with the different thoughts and the sankharas that arise.
Stealing is, I have written it down, is true happiness.
මේම හිතන්න මේ සුජාතා a ship's anchor.
Yeah.
When you release a ship's anchor, you must stay far clear, right? Because the ship's anchor is very heavy.
Yeah.
And if your foot or something gets caught in it, you'll die, right? Especially the big ships, right? You'll be dragged down. Just like that, when a formation arises, this formation could seem like a physical pain, a vedana, or this formation could be a certain thought, a memory, a reaction, whatever it is, all sankharas. When they arise, they pass. If we do not let them pass entirely, completely, we will bring about the opposite of steady, which is restlessness.
Which is
Which is restlessness.
restlessness.
ඒ කියන්නේ අර මහා in that great ship, when the anchor is falling down, this person is trying to catch hold of it. Not going to happen. Right? Not going to happen. In the same way, the mind tries to keep that going, thinking on that sankhara. Then you think pain, and you think pain, or rather you take the pain personally. This moment, what happens is, the dukkha arises because you're clinging to something that is impermanent in nature. You're clinging to something that cannot be clung to, that shouldn't be clung to. Right? That shouldn't be clung to. Right? Make a thing hituot, when you take milk and put some bacteria into it, right, which is a foreign agent, right? It's not supposed to be in the milk. But when the milk turns into curd or yogurt, we enjoy it. But really, that is a bacteria. Of course, healthy bacteria and all of that, right? In the same way, when we look at whatever Vedanas or whatnot that arises, right? And there is something that is foreign, which is this lobe that has come. This lobe, like the curd which was formed out of the milk, or the yogurt that was formed out of the milk, that is formed a formation. That formation, that atma, that view of self, that all of that proliferates itself because you clung. Because you clung. So, Sujata, next time, for example, when pain arises during the meditation, don't cling. Don't cling. Learn how to not cling. Learn how to not cling to the pain. Guiding your attention back every time. But when you're also with the breath, do not cling to the breath. Be with the breath. Do not cling to the breath.
Be still.
Stilling of the mind.
That's it.
Stilling of the mind there. Right? ඔතකොට අර සංඛාරයන් උඩ තණ්හාව හටගත්තේ ගමම්ම, when we cannot see තණ්හාව හටගත්තේ ගමම, it is like, just imagine some fog coming over your experience. Now you can't see beyond that fog. You can only see that it is fog. You can't see.
Yeah, you got it. Yes, right.
Yeah, you can't see. The fog arises when tanha arises. The fog arises when craving and clinging arises. Right? The moment craving and clinging arises in the meditation, the fog arises. Then hiruna kila hitana. Right? You might have experiences, if you just look back, I'm sure you have, where in your meditation you see there are places where the mind is completely open to possibilities.
Yes.
And in the practice with the present moment, and then there are times where it is completely closed off. Right? That openness of mind is no longer there. Now it is a more sort of like you are closed off. You don't have the openness anymore.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing to be having?
That when you have that openness that you have, meaning the openness of heart, openness of mind, welcoming, accepting, the opposite is the contraction, the closing off. Right? So when it's open, everything is so clear. The breath is clear, the sensations are clear, the mind is clear. When it is closed off, nothing is clear. You're like, what am I going to do now? Remember that? What am I going to do now? That is a close off spot.
Enclosed.
Right? So what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? The only thing that you can do, let go and observe.
Thank you.
But that's
Lovely explanation, Bhante. Thank you. I got it, I think.
Yeah. So that's the thing, isn't it? The only thing that we can do, and that is what we reaffirm every class with whatever session that we do, is the thing that we can actually do nothing. Then observe and be. Right? Getting rid of the kama tanha, getting rid of the rupa tanha, arupa tanha. But of course, we start with the kama tanha. To those of you who are not familiar with the three words that I just used, kama tanha is the craving that arises towards the sensuous pleasures, sensuous things. Here, the word sensuous pleasures is used to denote a positive experience, sensuous pleasures. The way that I want things to be, the way that I prefer things to be, all of that. Sensuous pleasures කියලා කියන්නේ ඒ මෙතන sensuous, some sort of sensuous pleasant outcome. All of that fall under kama raga. Right? And remember, raga, there is a sense of looking forward to, yearning for everyone. Right? Yearning for rupa raga. Rupa raga is with the material sphere, isn't it? The material sphere. Now, මොකද දැන් ධානවලනේම වල ඉන්නට sometimes you don't even eat. You're in your room, in a different in your jhana. You're completely separated. You don't care about taste. You don't care about anything else. You're just in the jhana. That is your thing. That is your thing. Right? Then Rupa Raga. Rupa Raga, Arupa Raga. Arupa Raga is the clinging that we have to the immaterial, which is even more subtle. Even more subtle. මේකටත් ඇලෙනවා. බලන්න කොයි ගිය can't take you anywhere. Like some sort of klepto just picking stuff up somewhere. Can't take you guys anywhere. Rupa Raga, Arupa Raga.
Yes.
Arupa Raga unam arupa thale thina, that subtle letting go and the lightness that comes from not having or not clinging to any rupa. So just imagine being lighter than a cloud. Right? Then, hold on, I'm not done. You're lighter than a cloud, and the lightness too disappears.
Disappears, yes.
The lightness too disappears.
Nothing is there.
The jhana is like being light as a cloud. In arupa, that also disappears. So lightness disappears as a whole. Because those sensations are not there. You're completely disattached from the material world. ඒකට තැලෙනවා. ඒකට තැලෙනවා. ඒකට පස්සේ the supramundane is far more higher. Of course, the vipassana, that is where the vipassana takes us. That is where we are able to let go, identify the rupa, arupa, kama, rupa, arupa, and let go of them. Api, right? Hitanna ona kama raga again. We have to be concerned about that kama raga, with the yearning for, right? We'll discuss more about that next week, everyone. Take care. And Nokunada Terwan Sarnai.
Thank you.
Thank you.